Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. This is Yankees Unloaded. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the Yankees 6-3 win over the Cardinals. We're going to talk about Austin Wells. We're going to talk about some interesting quotes from Aaron Boone that have us not feeling so great, and among other things. But just want to, thank you guys. We actually hit 20 members on the channel, and we didn't actually point it out, but we've got over 3,000 subscribers as well. We're getting close to 300,000 views on the year. So a lot of milestones, and we appreciate you guys for being in that, putting us in that position. Even talk about like 20 members. We didn't have access to members like last month. So
yeah, I think we made the right decision going every day. Because we decided somewhere along the way, we're going to do a show every single day. And Jake, I know you and I talked about it briefly. We had a day off yesterday. We wanted to make a show, and the turnout was amazing. So you got us in a good mood already. And then obviously with the win, we're feeling good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, everything's just been kind of snowballing in a good way. And we actually have 2 new members as part of that 20. Want to give shout outs to new members Rafael Munoz for the field level and Jacob Pfeiffer for the second deck. Appreciate that. And our field level shout outs: Juan Cepeda, Kid from LI, Carlos Marrero, Jeff J, Ed W, Brian Fuchs, Ryan Hoffman, and Rich Squires. Obviously, Rafael Munoz as well. Appreciate you guys so very much, all of you. And let's get started. Since none of you guys gave us a mailbag question, it's okay though. We still love you. All right, let's start off with Austin Wells. First off, Gary literally texted me during the game, and he said, "Oh, Austin Wells is going to hit a home run here." And like, you have to understand something. I've done that before. Gary never does that. That's why never. If you know Gary, it's actually kind of impressive, because he isn't one of those people that gets overly high or overly low on really anything. And so he isn't normally like, oh yeah, this guy's going to hit a homer. Like I was impressed. I'm not going to lie.
I just thought the situation called for it. Cause remember what the situation was.
The first one, obviously.
Yes. The first one, we had hit a ringing double. We were at second base with a base open. Now, a lot of times when people see first base is open, Aaron Judge at the plate. Judge obviously went 0 for 4 at 3 Ks tonight. He was not very good. But before all that happened, the Cardinals had to make a decision. Why would we pitch to this guy? And that was my thought process. I said to you, Jake, there's no reason to pitch to this guy the way he's been playing all year. You put him at first base and you pitch to Austin Wells. Now, we're huge believers of Austin Wells on this show. We've talked about it. We've talked about the fact that Jose Trevino should be nowhere near the field unless Wells really needs a day physically. And that's obviously not been the case. But given that situation, I said Judge should be walked at first base. You just have to pick your poison when it comes to those 2 players. And I'm choosing to pitch to Austin Wells every time. Regardless of what happened tonight, you have to pitch to Austin Wells rather than Aaron Judge. They did it. They pitched to Aaron Judge. It worked. And long behold, Austin Wells comes up there and hits a 2-run bomb anyway. So he kind of made me right. But at the same time, I wasn't expecting Judge to be pitched to. So we'll take it.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely take that. He had 2 today, of course. Man, it's fun watching him hit home runs. You can see the power. Obviously, he only has 12 because, well, Aaron Boone barely plays him. But no, let's talk about it. Austin Wells in the scope of things. I texted you this. I think Austin Wells is a top 5 catcher in the league. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now I want to ask you right now, like, who would you take over him? Like, if you're talking, catchers around the league, who would you take? Because I think currently right now, I think he might even be the best catcher in the league. I think he's definitely the hottest since it was July. Well, it's just like right now, I feel like I would take Austin Wells over really anyone right now. And I will also say this, Gary. I don't think catchers are running away with things anymore. I don't think this is a league full of Joe Mauers, even like a Jason Kendall. It seems like Adley Rutschman Will Smith, guys like that, Logan O'Hoppe, like they're not hitting 290, they're not hitting 300, they're not hitting 320. Like I don't know. There's no Buster Posey anymore. I feel like that's why when I say Austin Wells is a top 5 catcher, I don't know if that says as much as what I'm trying to imply. I'm saying he's one of the 5 best catchers in baseball. And the catcher, just the whole realm of catcher is like how the tight ends are going to look after Travis Kelce and George Kittle retire. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's going to feel like there's some good guys, but no one's out there like a Gronkowski,
I think that's more analytics driven. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. And I know we've described this show, this podcast, as a show where we consider analytics, but Jake, you and I both are still old school fans at heart. And I think that's part of the reason why we've attracted the audience that we've attracted, is that not everything is about analytics. Sometimes you just want to get good players at every position and have guys that know how to make an adjustment, have guys that know how to play baseball. You want to get good baseball players. But so much of the catcher's position has nothing to do with offense. And Jake, it has a lot to do with catcher framing. We've had that talk a lot this last decade. We have, right?
Yeah.
Jose Trevino. A lot of people think that this conversation between Austin Wells and Jose Trevino, who he plays against, lefty, righty, why is Trevino playing at all? Well, long story short, Jose Trevino plays because of his pitch framing. And a lot of guys, veterans on this team, Garrett Cole, who's essentially made it clear he wants Jose Trevino to catch him. Well, he's doing that because he's aware of the analytics. Garrett Cole's a very smart pitcher. He's been around this league. He knows what he's doing out there, and he knows these numbers. So having said that, a lot of the analytics is part of the reason why you see a lot of catchers on the field and not necessarily what they do with a bat. I think you're exactly right. When you text me that he was a top 5 catcher, part of my brain went into defense mode. Like, hold on a second. I don't want to throw him into that conversation. But when you look at lists, you're seeing guys like JT Realmuto in the 2 spot. When you look at a lot of MLB.com, FoxSports.com, you see a lot of Realmuto, William Contreras, right? Will Smith of the Dodgers. A lot of these guys, you look at their batting averages, slugging, ops, they're hitting 15 to 20 homers, hitting about 250. And then you look at the analytics of what they do defensively, what they do in terms of throwing out base runners. Austin Wells stacks up against all these guys. The only player who really separates himself is Rutschman in Baltimore. That guy right there is a special player. Obviously, he hit 20. He's hitting 20. He hit 20 homers last year. Okay, so very good player. And you projected Wells to be a 20 homer hitter, which I said I can't just give him credit yet. Aaron Boone has to give him the leash to be able to unlock that. But I can't watch a player play really well, play like an all-star for 110 games, and just make the assumption he can do it for 162. I need Aaron Boone to be smart here and give him that leash to unlock that. That's something that'll make the Yankees better. We've been calling for it on this show. And Jake, I want to make sure I give you credit. You were here first talking about Austin Wells and what he could do for this team. Remember, this was not a popular take 3.5 months ago. When the season was starting, everyone assumed Jose Trevino. We're going to hope that he gets back to the first half version we saw a couple years ago. And Austin Wells, we're not sure if he knows how to catch, right? No one knew. Is he going to go to first base? What's the bat going to look like? That's probably the thing we were least worried about. But you said it. You were high on what he was doing behind the plate, and you thought he was a 20 home run hitter. You said that before anything happened, so I want to tip my cap.
I appreciate you, Gary. Yeah, I mean, I've been a big fan of his. Kind of going into this year, I felt like, you saw flashes last year. It's time to really start putting that together, turning it into something. And that's what Wells has done. He's really turned it into something. I mean, I think next year he can hit 25 to 30 home runs potentially, if he continues this thing up. Because I think he definitely has the swing to be like a 30 home run hitter. He definitely could. I'm not saying he will. I mean, right now that would lead the league. But I will say this, to be fair, only William Contreras has a better on-base percentage than Austin Wells. So, I mean, Austin Wells is getting on base. And when he isn't getting on base and, he actually, really like he puts the ball in play and it's like, lasers that go right at guys. But now he's starting to get that lift more. You're seeing more lift, with those home runs. And I think that's going to go a long way. I think Austin Wells is going to be the guy we look back on during the playoffs and be like, how did we not see this coming? Like, I think he's going to have a really important run in the playoffs, push to play every single day, which he should. And I watch him hit those home runs to right field at Yankee Stadium, and I'm like, dude, he's going to be doing that all postseason long. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy that just kind of comes out of nowhere and he's the unsung hero.
Well, that's my question for you. I actually tweeted and said that Austin Wells this is post game here. Austin Wells is our catcher. No other names, please. Right. And this is something that I think, I'm not going off on a limb. A lot of people feel this way.
Yeah.
Well, one reply I saw said there's not even a debate. Okay. So it's interesting that everyone feels like this is a foregone conclusion. And you just mentioned when we get into the postseason, a lot of us are going to say, hey, this player, this is a guy, we had him at our front doorstep this whole time. We could have been playing him every day. Well, a lot of us have had this conclusion for now 2 months. We've known this for a long time. So I guess the important thing here is, when is Aaron Boone going to get there? When are we going to get there? What does Austin Wells need to do on the field? Because as far as I'm concerned, Austin Wells, he's been excellent in terms of pitch framing analytics, right? Something they've told us they care about. He's dominated at the plate. He's been probably a top 2 offensive catcher in the game. He's been the best offensive catcher in the game since July 24th, statistically. So the question is what does Aaron Boone need to see from Austin Wells to say, this is my catcher every day, until physically he needs a break?
I actually know the answer to this. You ready?
Oh, yes. Please tell me.
It's been hiding right in plain sight, Gary. Listen to this. Games matter in the postseason. I don't care how big your ego is. You are not doing things to, oh, this guy, he's one of our guys. No. That is when the true colors are going to show with Aaron Boone, because he knows how important it is for his job to win a World Series, for his legacy to win a World Series. He is not going to do any of that. Yeah, let's play DJ LeMahieu. Clearly, I know he's not good enough to be on the field and arguably deserves to be more DFA'd than last year's Josh Donaldson, if you really look at the stats. But the point I'm making here is that, yeah, okay, they're going to have their favorites. They always do. Yeah, but that favorite is most likely going to be an Anthony Rizzo, because they believe there's an actual argument to be made about how he can help the team with his power, with his ability to get on base. So he's going to have an actual reason. When you play DJ LeMahieu at first, there's no logical explanation for him to be in the game, because you're telling me that you think he's a good first baseman, which, let's pause there. That might be the only thing Ben Rice is doing right now. Over, DJ LeMahieu.
That might be the thing you've hated the most, is watching DJ play first base.
I hate
so
it.
Jake, so essentially what you're saying is that Aaron Boone is already there with Austin Wells. He's just not playing him every day because the games technically aren't do or die yet.
Exactly. And so it's kind of the both. I really thought about this throughout the game. It works both ways. So Aaron Boone can just say, I'm giving Austin Wells time. Aaron Boone could look at it like you and I are looking at, like, this guy is in a rhythm. Why wouldn't you play him? He could look at it as, these are games that I get to play Jose Trevino, so I show my loyalty to him and make him feel like he's a part of the team, kind of lift him up so that when we get to the postseason, we have him in case we need him. But at the same time, I'm also saving a lot of reps with Austin, and that is going to allow me to use him every day in the postseason. So I understand people are going to comment saying, wait, hold on a second. You think Aaron Boone's that smart? Honestly, he's a 3rd generation big leaguer, so he should be that smart.
Technically, he should be smart. Yes.
But Gary, that's how I feel. Like, I'm really starting to see it. Like, and I'm not giving Boone a pass, so to speak. I just think this is kind of where it's going. I think they can play both sides. They can say, by keeping Austin Wells fresh, I can play him every single game in the postseason. Whereas some of these other guys are going to get, worn down a little bit playing 140, 150 games. And my thing, when it comes to, Austin Wells not playing those days, it's like Aaron Boone knows. I mean, obviously, these are still must win. You and I would both say that. But Aaron Boone knows they're going to be in the playoffs. He knows that, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but he really wants to be able to play LeMahieu. He wants to play Trevino. He's a player's manager. He wants to give those guys playing time. And so, in a sense,
why doesn't he want to give Peraza any playing time at shortstop?
Well, because I guess he's not one of his guys.
Isn't that interesting? Because if you're a player's manager, I mean, is it just your player's manager, or is it that you just have favorites? Because I would really
Peraza
hate
isn't
to
on
believe,
the team now, so that's
I would just hate to believe that there's politics run that deep in New York. I really would hate to see that, because Jake, you bring up a really good point. I know I texted this to you the other day. Is that technically the positive side is that Austin Wells is going to be fresh. We're giving him the best chance to be fresh in October to play every day, which you mentioned. But I guess where I'm at is that I don't like the idea of saying that these games in late August aren't as important as the games in October.
Oh, I hate it.
We both hate this idea. I think a lot of our listeners are going to hate this idea, because what you're doing, you're prioritizing health and saying that tomorrow or the day after is more important than today. And they're going to tell you, oh, well, hold on a second. I think that Jose Trevino is plenty good enough to help us win. And that's when we look at the statistics and say, how is that possible that you reach that conclusion? Because if you had a catcher that was comparable, if you had a catcher in your room that you said, this guy can hit, he can field, he can throw, he can run almost just as well as Austin Wells, we wouldn't have a problem getting Austin Wells off the field. We wouldn't have a problem keeping a guy fresh. But when you take a guy like Austin Wells, who can do what he did today, right? Essentially put the team on his back. He's the reason we won today's game. Well, if Austin Wells doesn't play today and Jose Trevino decides to catch the veteran Marcus Stroman, we lose. It's that simple. And yes, Austin Wells, if he didn't play today, we are increasing his chances to be healthy in October. That is not debatable. But we lose today. And we're now talking about, if Baltimore ends up coming back in this game against Colorado, we're talking about a half-game lead in the division rather than a 2.5-game lead, potentially. So that's how things change. I just don't like the idea of saying that October is more important than August, because October is only important once you've gotten there. You can't think about October in August. And that's something it seems like the Yankees are doing a bit too much. If that's what they're doing, I'm just not for it. But thankfully, he was in there today. We've got to give Boone credit for him being there, and it paid off today.
This is where my dad would step in and be like, yep, we got to give him credit for doing his job. Playing the best player.
The common sense. But it is common sense. But every once in a while, when common sense is displayed, you need to give someone a pat on the back and remind them, we need more of that. We need more common sense, because we can wake up tomorrow and we don't really have assurance that Jose Trevino won't be in the lineup. We don't. No one really knows the answer to that question, and that's the sad part. So I have a feeling you hit 2 homers, you should probably be in there. You've got to roll with the hot bat, but as we know, Aaron Boone, he said in the past he doesn't believe in the hot bat. I have a hard time believing that Austin Wells is not starting tomorrow.
Yeah, if he's not starting tomorrow, that's going to be a big problem. I just don't. How can you do that? I don't know. He just hit 2 home runs. You learned your lesson with Stanton, right? I would assume. Maybe I'd be dumb to assume, but I don't know. I just think you got to keep guys in their rhythm and everything, and it's wicked frustrating when you get out of it. But let's move on to Jasson Dominguez. Now, there were some interesting quotes that came out today. I was texting you them. I was like, Gary, not liking what I'm reading here.
It was right before the game.
Right before the game is right. So I'm going to try and bring this up. But, I'll say this. Okay. Basically, Aaron Boone is saying that Jasson Dominguez is in the discussion. Like saying, like, he was asked about Jasson Dominguez to get called up. Remember, I actually toyed with this idea. I was like, what if they don't actually end up playing him at all? because they actually think Verdugo's a better option right now. Like, what if that? Because I think that's actually possible. I mean, Aaron Boone said the Yankees have not decided if Jasson Dominguez will be one of their call-ups when the rosters expand Sunday. And then his quote is, he's definitely a name in consideration.
What date is that? Sunday.
It's just, what?
That's September 1st. Okay. Now, we have mentioned that if Jasson Dominguez gets called up on the 1st of September and he plays every day, because that's another quote that they gave. Long story short, if Jasson Dominguez is called up, they said they want to play him every day. They want him to be a starter. And that is completely understandable. We totally get it, especially when you look at who's in left field. But if he's called up September 1st, he is going to run out of at-bats before the end of the year. So that's the question. Are the Yankees they should be calling up this player now. It's very clear that if you saw Jasson Dominguez's name in our lineup rather than Alex Verdugo, I don't care what he's doing in left field. I don't care what the analytics or what the eye test or scouts say about his defense in center or left field. I don't care. Jasson Dominguez and what he does on the base pass, what he does at the plate, this is the reason why he went protected from all these trades. You protect him for moments like this, where you're nursing a 1.5 game lead in late August, you're heading into September, and you're telling me that we're in a win now season. So I understand this whole idea of protecting at bats because you really want a first round pick. But Jake, I've talked about this before. Teams that tell us they're in win now mode shouldn't be thinking about picks in 2025 when it comes to personnel. With personnel, Aaron Boone needs all the help he can get because he makes mistakes almost every other day, if not every day. So I want to see the best players in there. And when you give me a quote like Dominguez will be in the conversation, would Alex Verdugo, if he was in AAA right now, because at mid-year we decided to send him down for whatever reason, and Jasson Dominguez was in left field, do you think we'd be saying that Alex Verdugo was in the conversation?
No.
We wouldn't. We would just say nothing. There would be no quote to talk about. The reason we're giving you these quotes is because the media wants to know, when is this better player coming to the Yankees? That's the real question. And they haven't given us a real definitive answer yet.
No, it's just absolutely ridiculous. It really is. My God. When I see that, I get so frustrated. I mean, so frustrated because to not have Jasson Dominguez is saying you don't care about having the best lineup, because there's no way you can truthfully, if you know ball, believe that Verdugo is the better option than him. I'm sorry. No.
The development between August 30th and September 10th, for example, those 10 days in the minor leagues are going to be the difference between Dominguez developing and not. So that's the blasphemy that we're talking about. Remember, Jake, earlier this year, and you've mentioned this, I'm going to make sure I give you credit for this. You said if Jasson Dominguez is not called up immediately when he's physically ready, karma's going to come for us because Jasson Dominguez hasn't shown us he can stay healthy. We are playing with fire, keeping a player in the minor leagues that we know is a big leaguer. And you were right. It's exactly what happened. He ends up, I think, having a lat issue, and he went out for 2 months. So you're talking about a strained lat on a check swing. Okay. When you have the third best offensive player in your outfield in your entire organization sitting in the minor leagues, and you're telling me he's in the conversation to be called up, is he in the conversation for being a better player than Alex Verdugo today? No, it's not a conversation. Jasson Dominguez is a big leaguer. We talked about that before our podcast really ever got started, before we ever had an audience. We said Jasson Dominguez really is not a prospect. The fact that we have him on top 10 lists, top 30 lists, top 100 is quite ridiculous. This is a player who was one of our best bats in the end of last year. Then he gets hurt with the UCL. He was spectacular. I think people forget what we saw. I really do. So, Jake,
well, can you blame
this is
him?
Common sense.
They got one chance to see him this year on ESPN.
I mean, people freaked out.
Yeah,
he had a bad game against one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in the AL. and they expected him to go 2 for 3 or even get a hit. I mean, you just have to give someone time. You can't bring someone up for one game. If you saw Aaron Judge play today for the first time ever, would you tell me, oh, wow, he just looks like a bad baseball player? But then you turn on the game tomorrow, he's going to hit a home run, and then we're going to talk about him in conversation with Barry Bonds. That's baseball. So you got to give people an opportunity to show who they are. Jasson Dominguez already showed us who he was last year, got hurt, and then now we're sitting here acting like we're resetting him as a minor leaguer. This guy's not a minor leaguer. He really should have been treated like he was on rehab, just like Anthony Rizzo is right now, which I want to kind of dive into what's happening with him as well. Because at first base for the New York Yankees, we're talking about Ben Rice and DJ LeMahieu, two players who are really struggling. They are, Jake. And right now, Anthony Rizzo has been offered the responsibility to play most, if not all, that's a quote from Max Goodman. And they gave us this idea because it basically tells you he's at the end of his rehab assignment. That's essentially what that tells us. And that is a good thing for the Yankees. Is Anthony Rizzo going to show up and be Teixeira? He's not. But you know what he will be? He'll be much closer to the baseline output of a league average first baseman. And that's what we need. Right now, we've got a black hole over there at first base. I know you don't like watching DJ LeMahieu play first base at all. It probably has had something to do with the woes, right, of Chisholm and Volpe defensively. Having a slight upgrade over there defensively could really help.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. So the September call-ups, that is going to be one position player and one pitcher. Okay. So they get one call-up for batter and one call-up for a pitcher. Putting it to 28 players on the roster. So I hate this rule because I don't see why I have to be like forced to have a pitcher be one of the guys.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because now who's our pitcher? Like, who is it that we're going to be?
Like, I don't feel like they need to call up a pitcher right now. No one's ready. But if they had to, I mean, Schmidt, Poteet, one of them. And then as far as the batter, I think it'd be Rizzo by default.
Okay. Rizzo, because Rizzo clearly physically is ready. Jasson Dominguez, if they care about this draft pick thing, he won't show up. What was the math we gave?
It was
10 days
September 14th, I think.
Right. Sometime between September 8th and September 14th, somewhere in that window. That would be a real shame because that's 10 to 12 baseball games. That's a shame. It really is. So I don't want to see that, but Rizzo is a help.
The way we started this show, remember how we started it? We talked about the rev up period. That was something early on when we were talking about whether Blake Snell made sense or not. Yes, but don't keep it going until it's May or June and but the rev up process is absolutely real in my opinion when you're talking about postseason baseball. It's a different league than the MLB. It's a way different league than AAA. So that's how I look at it. I think Jasson Dominguez needs to climb a ladder from essentially AAA up to more like divisions. I think like that's how you have to look at it. And him not being in, the major leagues right now, he's not preparing. He's not having his rev up process for the postseason. That is the biggest concern of mine because people are just going to assume he's going to come in and do his thing. I still think he needs to see better pitching. I think AAA, you're going to have a lot of talented players. And I've said that before. I said that a lot of these guys are, no different than the guys in the majors, but there are a lot of them that are different than the guys in AAA that are in the majors.
Do you call that development?
I mean, that's development. That's absolutely development.
Isn't that interesting? Because they did that with Anthony Volpe his rookie year. He was in the big league level and Aaron Boone said, well, hold on a second. We're going to continue to play this kid because we believe he's in development. And they did that with Volpe, but yet all of the development, and at least what the Yankees describe us, for Jasson Dominguez has to happen at the minor league level. I bite back on that. I disagree with that. I believe bringing Jasson Dominguez here now, we're talking about August 30th, and I wanted him here actually sooner than this. We're talking about giving him over a month at the big league level, which is the point you just brought up, to get acclimated in pinstripes, get accustomed to playing here under pressure, because these games aren't just going to be pressure packed in October. Here's when the pressure is going to start. Those series, Jake, that you and I want to go to in late September against Baltimore, those are going to be playoff games. They will be at the stadium. That is really good practice for Jasson Dominguez. Now, of course, if he gets called up when we said he will, he'll get that experience, but that'll be one of his first couple games at the stadium. That's a lot to ask. And I think giving him that extra few weeks in the big leagues could help. So, yeah, it's part of the reason why we bring it up. And it's a matter of now if it's applied.
It is a matter of now if it is applied. I agree with that. I think, we like the Boston thing because I told you they go crazy with the whole ceremony anytime they call up their prospects. So bringing him for Boston, a notable opponent, makes sense. Also, it's at the stadium. The next best chance you'd have to have him playing at Yankee Stadium would be the Baltimore series. I personally think he needs to be up by the Boston series. At least at the very least.
That would be a good experience for a kid because, how old is Jasson Dominguez now?
21.
So he's a 21-year-old kid. Baltimore they've just overtaken Colorado just now 3-2 in the top of the 7th as we watch this. But these series are going to be close. The standings are going to be close. That's just the way this is shaking up. The Yankees tend to be kind of going on the side of caution, right, with their health of their players. It seems like nobody can pull away from one another. These series with Jasson Dominguez in the mix are going to be series in must-win games. It's going to be great practice for Dominguez. It's going to be. And so we'll get an understanding of what he looks like under pressure. Remember, we asked in our last episode, in that episode on the off day, we were talking about Aaron Judge and what he does in the clutch. Well, this is going to be good practice for him as well. If we're playing in huge series against Baltimore, we're going to have a situation where he needs to come through. There are going to be situations where Dominguez is going to come up where he needs to get on base to start the bottom half of the 8th. There are going to be situations like that. It's good practice. And Jake, before we move on to anything else, I want to make sure that we give Marcus Stroman his flowers, because I know I text you in the middle of this game and wondered what in the world we're looking at. We're looking at a pitcher at 60 pitches. Statistically, he was at 60 pitches through 3 innings, right? And you had a team in the St. Louis Cardinals that, frankly, they were seeing a lot of pitches. There were a lot of foul balls. And you mentioned that he gave up 9 hits. Was it 9?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 9 hits. So you're talking about a guy who was giving up a lot of contact. But as you mentioned, run prevention's his job. His job is to fail at giving up runs. That's what he needs to do. And he did that. So we need to give him credit because for whatever reason, St. Louis just was not patient the rest of the game. They were swinging first pitch, and he averaged, I think, 8 pitches per inning for the next 3 innings. That's amazing. And if you want to give anyone credit for really why the offense gets into rhythm, well, getting back into the dugout less than 5 minutes after the inning starts is one of those ways. So credit to Marcus Stroman for what he did today. I know you look up and his ERA is 3.81, and we've got to give him his flowers for that. The next best thing now is just piling up innings, and he did that.
Yeah, and he's done it after that innings limit that you were talking about, career high. So
yes,
that's another thing that matters. And I think, in closing, Jasson Dominguez, it's going to be really fascinating. Does he get called up on Sunday? I don't think so. I think it's going to be Rizzo. I think they're going to just use one of the September call-ups for Rizzo. And the reason I say that is because I don't think there's anybody on their roster right now they want to cut, in that on the bench for like bats, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we can talk about DFAing LeMahieu, and right around this time last year, this is right around when Josh Donaldson was DFA'd. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you think the odds of that are? If I actually had to ask you,
I think it has like a 10% chance of happening.
I think it's even less than that. Yeah, I was going to say even less.
I'll say 5.
It wouldn't surprise me if DJ LeMahieu, for whatever reason, wasn't on the postseason roster. That wouldn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
I still think they'll find a way to put him on it. But having said that, I mean, if you asked a fan, right, and they're fans, like technically we're fans of the game. We shouldn't be making personnel decisions as much as people sometimes want us to. But I will say, I mean, there are a lot of people who turn on the Yankees and think, Alex Verdugo, you really want him taking at bats in October? You really think that he's a name that you want to call for in October off the bench? Is that something that you're interested in? And a lot of us aren't. Are we saying he's not physically capable of coming through? No, a lot of guys in the major leagues are physically capable of doing something at the big league level. But are we going to ask him to try it? I think a lot of us are comfortable not even finding out what Alex Verdugo could do on the postseason roster. A lot of us are comfortable not finding out what happens with Ben Rice, right? A lot of these different guys on our lineup, and say, why don't we just put up Jasson Dominguez and Rizzo and be done with the charade of the first round picks? Be done with the charade of putting players on the field that aren't your best option at the position. So I think this answer is much easier than what the Yankees are making it out to be. I think it's very frustrating to have watched this and see it unfold, but thankfully, Baltimore didn't win a game, it felt like, for about 2 months. And they are a supremely flawed team. It's really put the Yankees in position to almost tiptoe their way through the regular season. We really didn't go out here and take the AL East. It almost feels like it's being handed to us. And Jake, a team that's prioritizing health, I guess we really might be making it out like bandits right now. Yeah,
it's kind of funny. I mean, I still say to this day, they could have easily had a way bigger lead if they had a better closer, or they didn't play Trevino over Wells or stuff like that. But no, the Yankees are in a good position. I understand the National Series was frustrating for a lot of people, was frustrating for us. But you have to understand that, while the National Series wasn't great, this team is still beating good teams. I mean, St. Louis is a borderline good team. They're almost 500 and they've been tough. They're not an easy win. The pitching isn't great, but they have hitters. They have bats. And we saw that today, with Arenado's home run. But no, I think really just kind of to wrap this up, I think the Yankees are in as good of a position as really any team in the league. I mean, I don't think there's a specific team right now that I'm like, oh yeah, they have all their ducks in a row. That's just not this year. That's not the major leagues this year. So, I think, in conclusion, I think obviously closer is a little bit of a concern because, Clay Holmes, but he has been using the slider more and he's seeing better results when he uses the slider. It's his new sinker ball for whatever reason.
Do you have a movie for us, by the way?
Oh, and it has to be good too.
I know. Yeah, it's got to be a good movie. So I think that's easier to do than a bad movie, but you're really on the spot. We didn't talk about this before the show. We recorded right after this game finished. So yeah, lay it on us.
Oh shit. Did I do did I ever do Beverly Hills Cop?
No, I don't think you did.
Okay. That's one of the best movies ever. The fourth one just came out on Netflix.
I've never seen any of them.
So you're going to have to go and watch Prime Eddie Murphy do his thing.
Okay.
Prime Eddie Murphy. It is a action comedy. It is about a Detroit police officer who's, let's just put it this way, very reckless, which is Eddie Murphy's character, Axel.
Okay. I can picture it.
Kind of he just does stuff without thinking. He's very impulsive and he's very rebellious too.
Are you describing Aaron Boone or are you describing Eddie Murphy's character?
Eddie Murphy's character. So he goes to LA and it just gets, it's big and everything because obviously he's in Detroit and that's obviously not big, but it's just funny. It's got a great cast. You definitely need to check out the series. The fourth one just came out and I mean, these have been out for a while, the first three. So check it out. I think it's underrated. I mean, it's one of my favorites, like the original Beverly Hills Cop is my favorite in the series and is one of my all-time favorite movies. So that's what we're going to do. If you made it this far, because we could go on and on and on. We already know that. We're trying not to. If you could type in Beverly Hills Cop, we'll know that you made it this far. But we appreciate you guys. The Yankees are 1 win away from 80 on the season. Thought this would never come at one point, but right around the corner tomorrow. Early game, Gary.
Oh, come on. Oh, Will Warren on the mound. Give me a cigarette.
You don't even smoke, do you?
No, but I'm thinking about it right now. I'm open to the concept.
Oh, my God. Well, anyway, we appreciate you guys. Drop it in the comments section below Beverly Hills Cop, and we'll see you
turn
guys
on
soon.
Notifications as well, if you can.
Oh, and of course, if you do audio podcasts, check us out on audio.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and like this video.